Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me right? Awesome. So on behalf of WWF and our partners, IKEA and Ralph Lauren, I would like to welcome you all to the session, Scaling Impacts of Collective Action Through Innovative Water Stewardship Solutions. As most of us are aware that the world is headed towards an imminent water crisis, with the demand for fresh water expected to outstrip the supply by 40% by the end of this decade. In addition to this, a report published by WWF last year revealed that the freshwater species has declined by a whopping 83% since 1970. And a separate study revealed that around 21% of wetlands have been lost since 1700. These statistics are grim and highlight the importance of immediate and concrete actions to save freshwater ecosystems. In today's session, you'll hear from WWF staff and our partners who are implementing collective action programs in priority river basins, and you'll learn about how they are helping us restore local river basins. So I'm going to quickly move forward, and we'll move to introductions. My name is Sabadar, and I'm Manager of Water Stewardship at WWF International. Today, I'll be moderating the session along with my colleague, Morgan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Schneider. I am a program specialist, water stewardship, as well as the U.S. technical lead for textiles out of WWF US. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I'm Neha Madanasthana, working as Sustainability Development Leader at Inter-IKEA Group, responsible for development of water agenda.
We have online speakers with us. And Mitsuko, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you. My name is Mitsuko Wong. I'm the sustainability lead for product and supply chain at Ralph Lauren. I'm based in our Hong Kong office. I'm responsible for our sustainability initiatives and in our global supply chain and product manufacturing space. I want to thank our partners at WWF for having me. Very, very excited to be here with all the other esteemed speaker, and looking forward to a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitsuko. We can now move on to Erin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Eren. I'm working at WWF Turkey as Freshwater Program Manager, and I'm also coordinating the Water Stewardship Program implementation in Büyük Menderes Basin. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Ragul, you're next.
Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. My name is Rahul, working as a specialist in river basin management, mainly focusing on Noel Bhavani basin-related programs in India. And I'm based in India, and I'm looking forward to meet and discuss in this panel discussion. Yeah.
Thank you, Ragul. Sohail, you're next.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. This is Sohail Naqvi from WWF Pakistan. I'm working as a director of the freshwater program, as well as leading the sustainability and stewardship work here in Pakistan. So it's a pity I couldn't be there physically this year, unfortunately, but very excited to be a part of this learning people, and looking forward for a very productive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sohail. Nia, you're the last one to go.
You're on mute.
Hello, everyone. Greeting from Mekong Delta, Vietnam. I'm Nga, Water Stewardship Program Manager, who work for textile water stewardship and upcoming other water stewardship for other program, other sector as well. Look forward to the interesting discussion today.
Thank you, Nia, and thank you everyone for introducing themselves. So I'll move on to our first question. My first question is from Aaron, who leads the water stewardship work in WWF Turkey. So Aaron, WWF Turkey is implementing a collective action program in the Büyük Menderes Basin since 2018. What were the factors that led you to piloting collective action in the basin?
Thank you, Saba. I'd like to begin with some brief information about the Büyük Menderes River Basin, the conditions in the basin initially. So here, the basin provides water to 2.5 million people. It supports agriculture, industry, and tourism. And it also is home to 3 internationally important wetlands and rich in biodiversity. However, we see challenges related to water availability and quality. For example, projections indicate a 50% decrease in surface water resources over the next 70 years due to overconsumption and also the impacts of climate change. For example, in 2021, the local government restricted agricultural irrigation due to a severe drought period. And it is not the only problem. In addition to these, pollution from urban areas, agriculture, and industry has been causing ecological degradation in freshwater habitats. So, as you can see, water risks in the Büyükmenderes Basin are shared risks that affect businesses, communities, and biodiversity. And this is the case in many, many regions worldwide today in the modern world. On the other hand, water management today is very complex. The demand for water resources has increased and diversified, and public authorities cannot manage water resources alone. So we must drive collective action, and we need public and private sector, civil society, and academia partnerships to address these shared water risks. So with that understanding, we have developed a plan to mobilize multi-stakeholder engagement. In Büyükmenderes Basin, our target sectors are textile and cotton production. Denizli province in the upstream is a textile hub. 60% of Turkey's home textile products is exported from Denizli. Aydın province in the downstream ranks second in cotton production in Turkey. So we have been mobilizing stakeholders from public and private sectors to create a more environmentally conscious and responsible textile supply chain in the basin. We have been promoting cleaner production methods. These include energy, chemical, and water saving projects in textile companies, and better water and soil management methodologies in cotton production in downstream. So these methods contribute to reducing the water footprint of production and mitigate operational risks in textile and cotton production. It also enhances the competitiveness of the local textile industry, and it leads to improvements in both water quantity and quality, and eventually the protection of freshwater habitats and the population they contain. We facilitate launch of multi-stakeholder platforms to provide technical and financial support for basin-wide transformation of textile companies and cotton production. So this integrated approach is known as landscape approach, and it forms the foundation of our strategy. So we have multinational support, multinational partners, for example, in this collective action. We have received support from multinational brands, for example, through a basket funding approach. To date, we have partnered with H&M, Inditex, IKEA, Tommy Hilfiger, Gina Tricot. And at regional and national level, we encourage textile industry to adopt cleaner production practices. In 2018, we launched the Cleaner Production Textile Program in collaboration with the Chamber of Industry and the Regional Development Agency, a public agency of Ministry of Industry. We developed a comprehensive guideline specific to the textile industry to assist cleaner production techniques. We have conducted trainings for more than 30 textile companies, and we conducted feasibility studies at 15 textile companies, and we aimed to identify opportunities for implementing cleaner production practices. We evaluated their approaches to manage raw materials, chemicals, water, energy, waste, and wastewater. And we have identified several widely applicable cleaner production measures in those studies, such as installation of reverse osmosis technology, wastewater reuse, rainwater harvesting, and etc. So based on those studies, we identified that average payback period of these investments is 1.5 years. And in the basin, in Büyük Menderes Basin, there are a total of 50 textile wet processors. And we estimate that investments ranging from 5 to 13 million US dollars in energy, chemical, and water saving projects could yield annual savings of from 4 to 11 million US dollars. So we demonstrated that yes, cleaner production investments are economically viable for textile industry. And this demonstration influenced the development agency to launch a cleaner production investment program. The agency allocated 700K euro support to the cleaner production investments. For example, 6 textile companies' investments have resulted in more than 500,000 cubic meters of water and 200,000 kilowatt hours of energy saving. In another project, for example, 5 textile wet processors that operate a shared wastewater treatment plant, they successfully implemented a water recycling project and achieved 90% of energy and 25% of water recycling in a total of 15% water saving. So this was the first phase of the collaborations in Büyük Menderes Basin for textile industry, but it is still ongoing. Textile cleaner production program is in the second phase. At this stage, the Chamber of Industry submitted a project to the Ministry of Industry and received funding to conduct a comprehensive feasibility analysis on cleaner production in 40 textile companies. In 2022. As WWF Turkey, we are a project partner in the initiative titled Denizli's Future is in Cleaner Production. And afterwards, the development agency will launch another financial support program for those companies. So we are, as WWF Turkey, our role is to facilitate stakeholder dialogue among regional stakeholders, technology experts, and financial institutions to encourage these companies to invest in energy, chemical, and water saving projects. And this program is still ongoing in the region, and this demonstrates that a growing commitment to environmental sustainability in the textile industry. And so we are happy to be a driver of collective action from multinational level to the local level. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for sharing all the great work that you've done and for sharing the business case for water stewardship in the Büyük Menderes Basin. I will now move on to our next speaker, Neha. Neha is from IKEA, and IKEA has been supporting this Büyük Menderes Basin since the start, so it has been one of the pioneering partners. So, Neha, my question is that what were those factors, or what was the motivation behind supporting these collective action initiatives in India and in Turkey? And also, what role do you see that companies can play in collective action initiatives?
Thank you, Sabha. At IKEA, we work with a vision to create a better everyday life for the many people. And in respect to that vision, in our sustainability strategy, we have committed to be good water stewardships and contribute to cleaner water availability within our operations as well as value chain. We have been working on assessing those parts of our value chain which have high impact as well as high dependency on water. So in 2018, when this project was initiated and when we got information about it, we found that it is a great opportunity for us to work together and learn. Because Turkey is a great region. It's an important region for our textile production supply chain. And this is also an important region from a water-stressed basin perspective within the textile supply chain, with that background. And we have been partnering with WWF on various projects. for over 20 years now. So with that background and a good foundation and understanding, we realize that it's a great opportunity for us to find solutions together, because we keep talking about problems, but working together on a project with a brand, with local stakeholders, with other brands, we should be able to find solutions. Yeah, that has been one of the biggest motivations. And as a as a location, as a basin, each location requires a holistic understanding of the challenges, right, which takes a lot of time in understanding it, as well as a comprehensive approach to find solutions, which can only be achieved by collective actions, right? So that was one of the beginning points. Then looking at it, as Erin also mentioned, that Bayuk-Mendris Basin is quite different, because it is a place having textile mills and dyeing mills, but also a backward supply chain of a cotton growing region. And when we got information about that the project is designed to address both the aspects, which is the wastewater from the textile mills, as well as regenerative cotton cultivation approach within the value chain, it seemed like a complete package in terms of a learning opportunity. So that was the motivation behind it.
Great, thank you. And just to add on to that question, what role do you see that companies can play in collective action programs?
As shared, that everyone in a basin has a shared responsibility towards water resource management, right? And to be able to be effective, we need to work together with local stakeholders, with communities, with NGOs, to be able to find the solutions, right? So that has been one of the key roles that we realize the importance of a company taking the responsibility of making effort, right, together with other stakeholders. Other than that, there is, we know that we can support by enabling share of resources with our knowledge or a global perspective that we can bring in to the project or to the collective action. Other than that, I see that industry can use their influence to foster collaborations with other stakeholders, with other brands, which is a precondition for any effective collective action program. Because unless that synergy is there and we are able to look together as a holistic approach, we will not be very effective. That has been at least a learning. Then companies can collaborate with the policy makers and regulatory bodies in support of water management practices and policies, because those are very important for the development of regulations and incentives for a good water management. So these are some of the approaches, and we are still learning, right?
Thank you so much, Neha. It was very helpful and very informative. I hope that other corporate sector business will also understand this. So building on to the question, and I'll come back to Erin. Erin, as you mentioned that you have established a number of multi-stakeholder platforms in Turkey. My question from you is that as an implementation partner, what do you think are the key features required for developing collective action initiatives? And what were the challenges that you faced in Turkey in mobilizing local stakeholders and resources for collective action?
Thank you for your question, Sabah. For this question, as an answer, I'd like to inform on the collective action case in cotton production in Aydın province in downstream. In the previous statement, I mentioned about the collective action for textile industry cleaner production transformation. Here in Aydın, in the downstream, we have cotton production. It supplies more than 300,000 people. So it's a very critical commodity. It's a key commodity in the basin. However, here in the basin, in the downstream, we see that the common method used for irrigation is flood irrigation. It's a very, very low.
Recording in progress.
Low in water efficiency. You basically flood the whole farm.
Recording stopped.
And it reduces cotton yields as well. And it also enhances pollution. Flood irrigation enhances pollution because agrochemicals are washed off the land into water sources. And freshwater ecosystems like Buffer Lake, Büyük Menderes Delta, they are internationally important wetlands. They have cotton production here has detrimental effects on these wetlands. So on the other hand, we know that modern irrigation techniques are water efficient systems. They can save water up to 50%. And additionally, pollution from farming is mitigated. So in our case, farmers in the region are eager to adopt modern irrigation techniques, but although there's a government support, which covers up 50% of the installation costs, farmers do not benefit from those grant support programs of the government because they have to find suppliers and also they have to make upfront investments. And they just focus on harvest and they consider that water allocation for irrigation is the responsibility of the government. And on the other hand, Ministry of Agriculture Irrigation Union aims that modern irrigation is widely adopted and used in agriculture, but their efforts are not sufficient. So we organized a meeting bringing more than 30 stakeholders from public authorities responsible for agriculture and irrigation, farmers, the Chamber of Agriculture, cotton companies, irrigation system suppliers, and academia. And IKEA was also present at that meeting. And at that meeting, the participants launched Cotton Water Stewardship Committee, and I'd like to thank IKEA once again, that they are the brand partner of this committee, which is a public, private sector, civil society, and academia partnership of 12 members. And the committee aims wide use of modern irrigation techniques in cotton farming in the whole basin. And the formation of the committee was indeed a smooth process. One meeting and then the participants launched the committee. But what we see is that, yes, each participant has distinct interests. Farmers aim for successful harvest season. Irrigation Union and Ministry of Agriculture, they are concerned about water supply. Technology providers, they want to sell their products. But when you look at all of those parties, you see that they share a common goal of enhancing water use efficiency in irrigation. So initially, the committee designed a pilot project on 100 hectares of cotton farms that belong to 17 farmers. The ministry approved the feasibility of the project, and the project targets to reduce irrigation water use by 50%, lower input costs by 20%, and increase yield of cotton by 10 kilo per hectare compared to flood irrigation. And in addition, to enhance, to leverage modern irrigation techniques, the committee has developed a policy paper. They are soon meeting decision makers, and if accepted by the government, the proposals outlined in the paper will enable the implementation of modern irrigation practices. And one key aspect highlighted in this paper is the importance of supporting collective projects by farmers rather than individual farmer. And the committee demonstrates in this policy paper that if government supports collective projects of farmers, it will be more, it will reduce the investment costs as well. So in summary, to keep it short, I can comment that, I can say that the success of establishing collective action relies on circumstances where various stakeholders share mutual objectives and they recognize that there's a need for collaborative efforts because the challenges are complex. So diverse parties with varying interests can come together to implement a targeted action plan. I think here the question is, who can effectively facilitate and orchestrate the process of dialogue and action planning? In my view, I strongly believe that civil society organizations, NGOs, institutions play a crucial role. They can bridge the gaps and steer collaborations toward impactful outcomes. I think the challenges of collective action here becomes who will facilitate. And here NGOs, civil society, I think the key. Hope I was helpful to your question,
Yes.
Sabah.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Aaron, for getting into the anatomy of collective action and sharing your experience from the Vivekananda Basin. I'll now come back to Neha. And so all this collective action story usually starts with the identification of water risks, etc. So as a part of the business community, are you seeing the impacts of water risk in your supply chains? And what is IKEA doing to respond to those risks? And just one more additional question on top of it is that, are there any key takeaways from your experiences in Turkey and India?
Okay. Thank you, Sabha. Yeah. Like you rightly mentioned, the starting point is to assess our risk and dependencies, and we have been on that journey to do that. We have a quite complex supply chain, but we have managed to evaluate risks across our supply chain, covering almost 1,100 suppliers, around 2,100 sites, and we have identified the key water-stressed basins as well as key basins facing water quality issues within our supply chain. Having said that, the next step is to identify an approach how to mitigate those challenges, right? Which is what we are trying to develop now. Coming back to the other question that you had.
About any key takeaways from your experiences in Turkey and India?
Yes. Before that, I think your question was also that what impact does it have on the supply chain, right? Definitely identifying the risks is one part, but it has a key impact on our supply chains, be it the direct physical risk or regulatory risk of changing of policies, which can impact our supply, frequency, availability, or impact on direct operations, which is the immediate impact. But other than that, there's a big indirect impact also, because almost 75 to 80% of the water use is within our raw material supply chain related to commodities. And any risks related to droughts or floods does impact availability of that raw material, which will further impact the availability goods and supply chain. So it is overall, when we look at it, it's risks at different levels. And with the changing climatic conditions, the weather events that are changing. So we don't need to just work on or understand the current risk, but we need to have a foresight to know, okay, how the patterns are changing next 5 to 10 years and what are the future risks that are going to come, and how do we start thinking or creating an approach to address even those, right? So that is the background in terms of what we need to address, understanding the risks. The other question that you had was, okay, what are the key takeaways that we have learning from these two basin projects? I think it has been a great learning. Summarizing few points here. The very first being that each location or a basin, geographical location or basin, has very unique challenges. They require a tailor-made solution. So there is no one solution that can fit all, right? So it has been a journey to go through, the two projects to understand what are the challenges they identified, what are the key stakeholders in that region, how the approach was to identify the biggest contributing, 3-4 areas to work upon, right? So that is quite unique. But at the same time, I feel that there's a big opportunity for us to have those learning cases and finding a way to scale them up, because scaling them up is an important factor to be able to make effective implementation or make a change in the world. Now, like I said, that it is very unique to a certain situation or geographical location, but we know that within a certain industry, the challenges are common across geographies. So there is a potential to learn from an industry perspective certain challenges that we can implement at new locations. Also, moving from one basin to another, there could be some similar challenges with slight difference. So I think rather than reinventing the wheel at each basin, as we go on learning from these basin projects, we can come up with a kitty of solutions or pre-worked, and understand, okay, these are the things that worked, or having learning cases that will help us implement and scale it at the new locations. That I believe is the one of the biggest areas of learning. Yeah. Other than this, just to add is I believe that there is, through this, we have realized that there is a benefit to form joint effort with other companies sharing similar supply chain. And there's a potential to come together and discuss on the common challenges, share the learnings. Only then we will be able to, exchange knowledge and inspire each other, because that is very much needed, that, no one party, NGO, local community will be able to solve these problems. So we need to come together, join our forces to be able to, with a common goal, obviously, to be able to find solutions that we can contribute in scaling up actions.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Neha. I think Neha raised some really important points. Number one being that water is very context specific. And the other is that the question of scaling of impact is really important. So for that, it's important that we share lessons, what we're learning from each basin. So in the interest of time, I'll quickly move on to our next speaker, who is Ragul. Ragul is a part of the Water Stewardship program being implemented in WWF India. So in India, we're working in the Noel Bhavani River basins. Ragul, can you share a brief overview of the Noel River Bhavani Basin project with us, and what progress have you made so far?
Yeah, thanks, Sabha. When we're talking about this basin, we feel it is most important as because it's originated from the mountain of Western Ghats, which is one of the world's the 10 hottest biodiversity hotspots. So that's most important, which has a different species of wildlife, flora and fauna and all that we need to conserve. And also this particular basin houses textile clusters, which is actually covers around 3 districts in Tamil Nadu of the state of India, which is responsible for around 90% of the cotton network exports. So that's also the 2 major cases in business perspectives and as well as in the conservation perspectives, where water is one of the key which connects across the basin, across the business and across the east-west. So that's one of the most cases. And we do have a different kind of issues, which is more or like more interconnected with one another across the basins and the landscape. It starts from ridge part of the particular basin to the plains. Starting from, say, for example, the existence of hydropower dams in the ridge area, so which alters the e-flows across the basins, actually in one part, which affecting the aquatic species and riparian vegetations in that particular area. And also, when it talks about the catchment degradations, which is affecting the water supply from the spring sheds, from the natural springs, which actually adds up basin, base flow of the particular area. And also the invasives, which is predominant in the particular area in the ridge, which is affecting the infiltration of the rainwater, which is also most important for the base flow of the river. And also the invasives, which affects the wildlife movements and as well as the feed patterns. And also there is a high level of water stress in one side of the basin, and there is a over exploitations which is happening in another area through agricultural things. And there are certain areas which is on the Tripur and middle part of this particular basin, which is the water level is very high, say for example in Tripur cluster. And also the domestic and industrial waste, which is in the urban area, which is affecting the surroundings of the health and as well as the environmental factors, which start from the hazardous chemicals from the textiles industries and as well as natural, usual kind of coliforms or the potability of the waters, which is questioning it through the domestic contaminations, which is also happening. And apart from that, the fragmented governance is also one of the major issues we are focusing on. So when we started this program in 2018 and 19, strategically we had set 3 levels. So one is about documenting the major issues of the basins, the scientific studies and recommendations. So that's one of the major cases because we need to have a baselines and also understanding. And creating action-based research through multi-sectoral collaborations. I need to just double quote it as multi-sectoral collaborations, as because we are co-creating the action-based research and as well as the pilot implementations of the recommendations. So for example, we wanted to demonstrate what we are trying to recommend to them. And through the recommendations, the participations and collaborations happens as well. And once when we develop the proof of concept on addressing certain issues, which is majorly focusing on that particular basis, we would like to create a kind of platform so that the policy advocacy can happen to scale up that particular success factors at the basin level. So these are the major three level of strategical approach we focused on. And focusing on that particular aspects, we have achieved like understanding the scientific aspects and the recommendations. And we started working on action-based research with respect to forest departments, which is on the multi-stakeholder collaborative approach, and the municipal corporations in the urban area of Coimbatore and Tirupur, two major cities in that particular basin, where we are closely working on demonstrating the pilots, whatever that we are recommending on, which is focusing on the invasives, it's focusing on the catchment degradation on spring-shot rejuvenations, and urban water management with respect to a specific city, and also agricultural universities and the departments on package of practices to minimize the water specific consumptions patterns within that particular. So these were the major, and we have achieved it on accepting. That means we have advocated with the departments of concerned departments where they have accepted recommendations that can be demonstrated, and also part can be included in their management plan. So that we feel one of the good acceptance of this particular project. And also, right now we are in the phase of piloting the implementations, demonstrations. So these are the two major cases, and we have secured the permissions from the departments to set up the pilot. And soon, probably in a year or period of time, we will be able to step on advocating the proof of concept, what we have actually achieved through this particular concepts. So these are the major area that we have achieved in a nutshell, if you want to just put it in this particular time period. And still it's open sabha. We can post it this to them.
Great. Thank you, Ragul, for giving us an overview of the project. Mitsuko, my next question is from you. Mitsuko is from Ralph Lauren, and Ralph Lauren has been supporting the Noel Bhavani River Basin since quite some time. Mitsuko, my question to you is that what was the motivation behind Ralph Lauren joining this collective action program, and how this program is helping Ralph Lauren fulfill its sustainability commitments and water goals?
Thank you, Saba. Well, water is critical for communities and ecosystem, our ecosystems to thrive, obviously, and it is also a very essential resource for our business. Our industry globally depends on water from the irrigation for our fiber crop cultivation to the dyeing and washing processes in the manufacturing supply chain. And we also have water management of our owned and operated facilities. So, we at Ralph Lauren are very much committed to reducing our water consumption across our value chain, but also we're committed to safeguarding access of water resources in our communities. And as a company, globally, we have a goal to achieve at least 20% reduction of total water use across our value chain. And this includes our operations and our supply chain as well. This is compared to our FY20 baseline. And while we're engaging and continue to engage with our suppliers in increasing their water efficiency and reduce water use, we do recognize that addressing water challenges across our value chain really goes beyond the water use in our own operations and manufacturing processes. And this is really why our approach to water stewardship also includes engaging in joint efforts to improve water management at scale. So WWF has been and continues to be a really key partner for us in this space. And through this ongoing partnership with WWF, we have conducted a very comprehensive water risk analysis through the water risk filter to identify water stressed basins in our supply chain and then prioritize action and investments to improve watershed health in those locations. And we started off with this analysis, and we continue to refresh this analysis as we go, but really informed by the results of these analyses, we started our participation in the Noel Bhavani Collective Action Program around 2 years ago. And by last year, 2022, 13 of our main textile productions facilities in the region have joined the program. And they were evaluated for their potential water management improvement opportunities. And then based on those evaluation results, the facilities implemented improvement projects that has resulted in a savings of more than 100,000 cubic meters of water annually. So in addition to addressing the regional textile industry impacts of freshwater, the program also, as Raghu mentioned earlier, it focuses on improving the systemic, holistic water challenges in the region. So this program really fits well into our overarching water stewardship initiatives, and I'm really looking forward to a continued collective progress through the program.
Great. Thank you, Mitsuko, for sharing your perspective with us. I think it's great that brands are now looking beyond the fence line and investing in systematic solutions. Ragul, I'll come back to you. And as you've mentioned, and Mitsuko has mentioned, that this Noel Bhavani Basin project is not just focused on improving efficiency of supply chains, but it also focuses on a lot of environmental components. So what are the challenges in implementing a collective action in a diverse landscape such as that of Noel Bhavani River Basin? And are there any approaches or local solutions that you've adopted to address those challenges?
Yes, about actually that's a very good learning for us also on go when implementing the program, because all the components are interconnected in this collective actions in the Valley. Because the water which get discharged from the textile industries in Tirupur also actually affects the environment as well. Doesn't matter just one start from there. Even the water which is, or the invasives or the catchment area degradation from the ridge area also affecting Tirupur particular area on getting or receiving the water. So that's where this whole the program is completely interconnected. So what happens, like, should we strategically navigate the challenges? We do have challenges in each and every cases. We agree on that one. Since it is a complex of different programs or different concepts into this particular one. And we happen to do a strategic things specific on addressing these particular issues. It includes a combinations of approaches and tools, we should say. Say, for example, I mentioned in the discussion, multi-sectoral collaborations, because that's one of the major key area, because as an organization, as a third party over here in the particular basin, we could be able to do some kinds of assessments on the preliminary studies. We can recommend to the particular authorities who can able to take up. We don't have an ownership to scale up that to the next level. So until and unless the other governmental agencies or the authorities or come together in one particular place, this cannot be taken as like a success factors to implement at the large scale level. Rather, we'll be end up in doing at the small scales, and repeatedly we may have to do the particular aspects of recommendations. So what we did actually, we set up a kind of multi-sectoral collaboration platform. So we prioritize collaborations over competitions. That's what we used to go and communicate. So this is not a kind of competitions, and we are not working alone in that particular area. We are trying to just add on certain aspects of scientific understandings and connecting the dots between these particular departmental things, because it's the governance of fragmented across this area. So we are creating that particular platform for the stakeholders to unite, share their knowledge, and co-create the strategies that consider diverse sectoral specific interest on the particular area. So that made us a kind of success to navigate to the next level. So this approach actually uncovers win-win solutions between the entire stakeholders in the particular. And when it comes to stakeholders, it's not just the departmental thing, but also a kind of local communities and citizens who are particularly living. So we recognize that effective collective actions start with the active stakeholders engagements. So that's our first case we used to do. So we initiate dialogues with diverse stakeholders, like including the local communities, conducting the workshops, seminars, awareness campaigns, so that it creates the sense of ownership and shared responsibilities of that. So for instance, citizen science engagement is one of the specific stakeholders engagement. Just talking about it. It's not just awareness or sensitizing them, involving them within that particular system of governance. Say, for example, data-driven decision-making is right now on spot across. So we need to collect a lot of information across the basins, across the river on their quality, quantity. So what happens in that particular areas and all these places. Even the different governance or the authorities will face a lot of challenges on getting the right data and right. So we are trying to just build citizen science in that particular area, taking ownership and responsibilities, like shared ownership and responsibilities with the government department, specific municipal corporation, or it could be the pollution control board, which is governing the water qualities within the industries and outside the industries and all. So share the information on time and create a kind of solution-oriented data sharing methodologies rather than a grievance mechanism. So we know if it is a grievance mechanism, again, there will be issues on sensitization comes. So we are creating a systems or a platforms where the communities, citizens, other stakeholders, NGOs and local partners, government departments and pollution control boards can come together and share their data within this particular area towards the solution basis. So that, because one of the main objectives for the collective action is at the end of the program, during the exit strategy, we wanted the citizens and the stakeholders to have a policy advocacy decisions with the departments so that they can address the pollution hotspots in a better way. So that's one of the major cases to take forward. Apart from that, participatory planning and decision making is one of the major focus we are looking into it, because that gives an inclusive plannings and involving stakeholders in shaping the strategies in that plan. Not just sharing the information or recommendation, and also involving them in designing from the beginning of the project. So that makes us one of the third kind of key strategies to navigate the challenges. And another one is we do have a long-term vision in this particular area, along with the flexibilities of making some changes.
Ragul, can you hear us? I guess we've lost Ragul. Morgan, maybe we can move on to our next speaker. Yeah. So yes, there's one more question for Mitsuko. So Mitsuko, coming back to you, we see that companies are doing a lot on internal action nowadays on addressing water risks, and they've made a lot of progress. But in your experience, what are the challenges companies face when it comes to collective action? And what further efforts do we need to scale up these efforts to make a greater impact in the industry?
Thanks, Ava. The first point that I would just love to raise is our product manufacturing and processing represents around 97% of our water use, compared to only 3% of our owned and operated facilities water use. So this type of footprint distribution is not unique to Ralph Lauren. It's quite common in our industry. So as our industry's global supply chain continues to evolve, one of our priorities is to identify our water use hotspots and address improvements in water use efficiencies where it's most impactful, particularly in water-stressed regions. Now, we prioritize on joining collaborative programs within the industry to leverage globally aligned methodologies coupled with localized expertise and best available technologies. Our direct collaboration with our suppliers has helped to improve water management through the adoption of these more efficient processing technologies. Now, in the past 3 years, these transitions into water efficient technologies have consistently helped us and our suppliers avoid around 150,000 to 250,000 cubic meters of water use each year. And in addition to this, we continue to expand our support to help our suppliers globally to set and implement facility level water reduction roadmap through industry level initiatives such as the Carbon Leadership Program in partnership with our partners at Apparel Impact Institute, for instance. And through the program, we sponsor facilities and they get supported by technical experts, and they are guided to set their own bespoke 2025 and 2030 water reduction targets with clear action plan that is applicable to their nature of operations. And through this kind of industry level collaborative program, our suppliers, our nominated suppliers so far, have created roadmaps that results in an estimated 17 million cubic meter of total annual water savings. So it's quite significant. And there is still a lot of untapped potential in water efficiency and technology development in textile manufacturing sector. So I really look forward to seeing similar efforts and initiatives continue to develop and scale. Another critical factor, I think, in addressing shared water risks and really induce action is the regulatory framework in our production geographies. We have seen, particularly in India, where government intervention is proven to be very effective in reducing water withdrawal significantly. This is through just mandating, the zero liquid discharge technology for textile manufacturing. So government intervention in incentivizing certain technologies that are most impactful and available in the region is really needed. And this type of approach could potentially be implemented in other regions for our sector. And this could be in the form of other types of regulatory framework. But fundamentally, what is needed is the incentive model for industry, for our industry and businesses to adopt technologies that enable significant water reduction. I hope that addressed your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Mitsuko, for sharing all that Ralph Lauren is doing. We'll now move on to next speakers. Morgan, over to you.
Actually, I've been told that Ragul is back, so if we want to let him finish his final thoughts, perhaps. Thank you. Ragul?
Yeah, actually, I closed it. I think it got disconnected in my last point where the communication strategy is also the part of it. So I have covered it completely. So I'm happy with that.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure. Well, and I want to thank you and Mitsuko for sharing your experiences about all this amazing work that's going on. Next, I'd like to invite my colleagues in Pakistan as well as in Vietnam to share with us the innovative solutions that they have been implementing within the basins within their countries. Unfortunately, the brands that have been supporting those programs weren't able to join us, but we'd still like to share the work that's been going on. Sohail, the textile sector is a key economic sector in Pakistan, and through the project, the International Labor and Environmental Standards application and SMEs in Pakistan, WWF Pakistan has established that multi-stakeholder platforms in multiple cities in Pakistan that address water challenges within that Indus Basin. What have been your key learnings for sustaining such platforms so far, and how are you using them to achieve conservation objectives?
Thanks, Morgan, and all dear colleagues for inviting us. Yes, Pakistan is actually an agro-based economy, and we are lucky in a way, like all the raw material of the supply chain, particularly in the textile, it exists here in Pakistan, from the raw cotton to the final garments manufacturing. All the processes exist here. And several big brands have their supply chain here in Pakistan. So textile is one of the major contributors into the GDP of Pakistan, as well as into the human power. But there has been challenges. We are sitting in the in the riverine system. Indus, Almighty Indus, is one of the major river here in Pakistan, and right now the population of Pakistan has grown up to 240 million. So that's why on one side, the pressure of the population is there. On the other side, the climate change and climate hits are there, and on the on the other side, the businesses challenges are still there. So all these, if you see as a as a holistic way, so there was a program launched funded by the European Union and WWF Pakistan, along with ILO, International Labour Organization, and other UN agency, started work in the textile and the leather sector to see how the compliance could be enhanced here, because on one side, as I mentioned, the raw material is getting challenges due to the climate change. The flooding is there, the drought hits are there, so the raw material is vanishing. So how to make the product sustainable in a way, and how we may contribute contribute into the production cycle. And on the other side, the water quality is being contaminated because of the different stakeholders. And in the dilemma in the developing countries, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and other countries, is the wastewater is directly or indirectly discharged into the water bodies. There are not separate drains for these, unfortunately. So the environmental compliance had been a challenge. So WWF Pakistan introduced that program named ILES, International Labour and Environmental Standards, where to build the capacity of the government as well as the private sector, how they can enhance or strengthen their compliance by adopting different practices. So we started work with the businesses, particularly first about the export oriented, because they were having state-of-art business, their production line, but still there was a room for the improvement. So we introduced a package like the revised or modified cleaner production techniques. We named them sustainable environmental practices. So the big brand suppliers, they welcomed that program and they adopted those practices. It's similar like the Turkey case, which my colleague Aaron mentioned. Like those businesses actually, they adopted those practices. And the businessmen, I used to say, they only know one language, which is the cost saving. Whatever they have invested and what they have got. And in the countries like Pakistan and the other developing countries, the brands have a major role. So that's why we started lobbying with the brands to convince the supply to adopt those sustainable practices, to promote, for example, water recycling, treatment of the wastewater, energy saving, etc. And we came up with a very good success stories. And sometimes the brand suppliers or the different the manufacturing industries, they are having state-of-art system, but only within their premises. So beyond the fence line had been a challenge. So that's why we started to introduce the water stewardship concept a decade back. So during that program, we took on board the brands, the technical partners, and the other, the stakeholders. We actually established a platform named Citywide Water Stewardship Partnership. So the purpose was, the manufacturing industries to take them on board, and besides their factories, the other stakeholders, the farming community, the government, academia, we took them on board, established a voluntary partnership where they discussed the issues of that specific region, and started working with the different innovative ideas, like how to conserve water, how to recycle water, how to reuse water. Like on one side, our program was wholly solely focused within the production line to build the capacity of the industries, so they can, improve their environmental compliance, which also contributes partially into the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, into the multilateral environmental agreements. And on the other side, working among the communities by these MSPs, multi-stakeholder partnerships, where all the stakeholders sit together and started working on that. So by introducing that program, we came up with very success stories. Like within the production line, 25 businesses, from the majority were from the textile sector. They invested by their own more than 1 million euros investment on the different sustainable practices, and they got 1.4 million euros annual savings in terms of the water, more than 600,000 cubic meter or 600 million liters of water annual saving, energy saving, chemical reduction, and GHG emission reduction. So that was a business case, which was a motivation for the other followers. So we started working with them and started lobbying from that MSP platforms. And we got very good success stories. And similarly, among the communities, different brands were, taken on board, and they started working on that. Like we started a program. We named it the water replenishment. So I believe our colleagues from Nike, they might be here, or either virtually they'll be attending. So we approached them and we started working with them on the water replenishment in the other communities, in the cotton supply chain, in the national level, the water stress areas, which was having the national level importance, as well as the Ramsar sites. So that was the idea on which we started work. And now we are confident, like our approach is multiplying here in Pakistan. And the government is actually also supporting them, because we are working in parallel with the government to guide them if there is any part of the policy is missing. So we used to guide them, and we used to give the policy recommendations to the government so that it could be part of that, and that could be multiplied in the other parts of the country. So I believe I have addressed that. I'll just stop here.
Thank you, Sohail. And I know you mentioned about working with the corporate partners, but could you speak a little bit more to how the brands can help to make that collective action initiatives more impactful, and how they can support the scale up?
Yeah, sure, Morgan. Thanks for this question. Yes, the corporates, I believe, and the brands, they play a vital role in any country whenever there's a business, bilateral or multilateral, the agreements. One of the reasons sometimes, the government has established, the national laws and standards, but sometimes, the brands have a more characteristic approach for their vendors, so which is acceptable, and because they have set the targets at the global level, and they are seeing at that level, the converse is they are having a broader vision on the basis of which when they divide or split the targets among the regions and it penetrates down, so the businesses or the suppliers, they welcome those stuff, and they start working on that. And organizations like WWF, we actually guide those businesses and assist brands to achieve those targets. For example, either there was a discussion on the ZLD, zero liquid discharge, either it was the ZDHC, or nowadays there's a discussion on the net positive conversation. So I believe like the brands, it's a good initiative if the brands can connect the suppliers with the other, the stakeholders, either it's a government, private sector, civil society organization, so they can come and they can sit together, because sometimes a lot of good work is in silos, but they doesn't complement each other. So that's a dilemma sometimes. So we need to come up with a strategy where all the the stakeholders, they sit together, and different brand supply chain. Sometimes it's only one region. So when once at the national level, the country has set the targets, all the brands who are having the shared risk in that specific region, they may collaborate by these multi-stakeholders partnership. And yes, we do have those examples. For example, Alliance for Water Stewardship standard, this is the standard on water stewardship, and the first textile industry which got certified was from Pakistan, and WWF guided them. So they were also suppliers of some major brands, because there was a key ask from the brands like to take initiatives, and then WWF guided them. And now there's a race in Pakistan. More than 11 textile industries are implementing AWS standard. This is just an example, but there are a couple of others. So but this is something, which could be, whenever we are working in that way in that specific region, so the impact could be multiplied if all the brands welcome each other.
Oh, sorry, Sohail, you're kind of cutting out there. Well, thank you very much, Sohail, for your thoughts. I'm going to move on to Nya. Nya, the Mekong Delta is faced with severe water challenges, and through your project, Greening the Textile Sector, You aim to improve the water and the energy efficiency of Vietnam's textile sector. Can you share a little background of the project and what progress you have made so far, please?
Thank you, Morgan. Mekong Delta is an important food basket of the world. We are the major rice exporter, and at the same time, also the Delta hosts crowded textile and garment production. So our program, Textile Water Stewardship Program, has the goals to transform textile dyeing industry into becoming a water steward and greener producer by promoting collective action of brands, public and private stakeholders. So our some main activity are, for example, we follow the 5 layers of the water stewardship, the 5 steps. That we first start with the water risk awareness, and we have raised water risk awareness to 700 textile garment industry manufacturers and provided technical trainings to 150 fabric mills, so textile dyeing manufacturer, which have the highest water impact. And also dive deeper, we conducted on-site water energy assessment to 50 textile waste processing sites, so that to identify water and energy efficient solution. Following that, through our we're supporting around 20 factories through the on-site advisory to support them in the implementation of the water stewardship improvement plan. And also we documented the technical knowledge and good water stewardship practice in 3 public guidelines. At the bankable project component, we conducted 7 feasibility study of the water saving and circular projects. And so these 7 bankable projects show that the return on investment of this water stewardship investments are likely profitable for enterprise and banks. And the payback period is around 5 years, some even 3 years. To get a full return on investments. At the collective sector level, we get a commitment and get the 70 textile and garment company to sign up this commitment to committing to a shared goals of reducing water and energy consumptions, supporting and contributing to greening industrial park, and also asking for brands to join this commitment as well, and then to this brand to set out greening KPI for their suppliers. And so the result is that Puma had joined this commitment. We also reach out to community, so to improve the waste condition for the community affected by textile cluster by enhancing the local people awareness of water quality through water testing, and then formulating village level water monitoring groups. We have already provided the filtering tanks for 35 families to purify their well water for domestic use. So the result so far is that after 4 years, 20 textile dyeing facility has taken action to reduce water and energy, and so together accumulatively saving about 2 billion liters of water per year, and 130 million megajoules energy. And this amount of energy is equivalent to 12,000 tons carbon dioxide emissions. On the bankable and green finance assets, 6 enterprise has mobilized the blend finance source to invest in water saving dyeing, machinery, and wastewater recycling utility. Also, working with the financial sector, we have mobilized for one leasing company to issue a green finance scheme for green investment in the textile sector. We also have to enlarge the market of the green projects by through the dissemination of business case and business networking, so that more energy and wastewater service engineering company and financial institutions get aware of and get more interested of the green projects. And at the community level, so we have supported to the two water monitoring group to form up and to figure out together the solution for accessing to cleaner water at the community level. So basically, that is the brief of our project progress.
Thank you, Nia. And it sounds like there's been some obvious successes there, but could you explain what are some of the barriers that you have identified in implementing the sustainable practices within the local textile sector? And then also, could you also speak to the challenges of implementing collective action in Vietnam and how you're looking to address some of those challenges as well, please?
Yes, so I think the barriers are enormous, especially in this time of economic turmoil. You know that because of the industry sizing down and the reducing a sharp falling in the export order. So this for all the bankable project that we have facilitated and developed, the leaders of companies show high interest and are convincing of our financial study, but then even through this 1 year, no or even slow or even no implementation, no investment in the green projects. The second barrier is that the lack of policy and standards for industrial water stewardship or wastewater recycle. So this has put many investment projects on hold because it takes them a long bureaucratic process to get this project running, but then it costs them a lot and also put them on the high financial risk. Another barrier and challenge is that you know that the basin is the shared water resources, but often users have a low awareness of the basin water risk and the water stock for the long runs, so that it creates a kind of moral that they only care for the immediate interest, which is to exploitation water resources at their best, so that's causing non-replenishable damage to the basin water quality and quantity. So this is also a conflict of interest problems. And also from the public policy, uncoordinated governance of water resource have created inequality of access to water between users. Upstream users gain advantage over downstream users, and also industrial, business, private users have a more strong voice and economic power compared to the community users. And so that's make convening a party in a collective action or collective dialogue a challenging task. Yeah. So that's basically the barriers. Yeah. Morgan, do you want to also about the mechanism to upscale?
Yes, that would be wonderful. You'd like to share that.
Yeah, thank you. I think when I hear Mr. Paul talking about the some mechanism from the brand's perspective, I see this is the highly aligned with the points that I prepare here. So for scaling up collective action, I think the brands have a significant power, strong powers, because you know that textile supply chain is a typical market-driven supply chains. So the buyer have a strong power to adjust supplier behaviors and business model toward the brand set goals. And in this case, it is the sustainability targets. And so that's why green transformation in the textile sector really depends on collective action and core of the brand for transformation. So we have leveraged the brand power through various sector seminar and events where we invited different brands to openly share about their sustainability target and KPI for their suppliers. And also we not only brand, but we also advocated with the governments to incorporate the sustainability goals into the national strategy for apparel and footwear sector of Vietnam until 2025. So that is about setting the goals and commitments. And also similar to what Miss Coach mentions, and Neha as well, regarding the policy framework, we all know that the technology curve solution for water stewardship are available. And through our bankable project, is also well known that the return on investment is likely profitable, but the existing water tariffs and related water governance legislations have not created sufficient interest for business to take actions. So it delayed their investment. They just wait until the water tariff or the governance of the wastewater discharge really strictens, and they will take action until then. Therefore, we are advocating, and we also calling on for other stakeholders like brands to advocate for the policy framework to be better incentivize the water stewardship actions, and moving away from the notion, the concept that taking water as an open rented resources. Also, we are working with the governments and the ministry to looking at the legal standard for recycled industrial and aquaculture wastewater, so that if the standard is at place, then the scaling up of recycle practice will be easier. And now we're talking for the basin level. The next is that we see that the nature-based solution will be the trend uptrend now, and knowing that the gray concrete water infrastructure at basin, we have the proved to be have the side effect on the basin health. So that's why we believe that collective action should be mobilized to conduct the research at the for the nature-based solution, and then to present the result to the public and private sector, and to address the basin problem. Like in Mekong Delta, is the problem of delta sinking, landslide, salination, and so in the long run, to replace the gray water infrastructure by greener water infrastructure, and also to have the solution on rainwater harvesting, and to return the natural flow of water and sediments, like the removal of dams and hydropower plant. Yeah. One last thing is about the basin governance. So we see that the Basin Governance Committee currently only engaged in Vietnam, only engaged mainly public government agency. But then, you know that beside the public governance agency, the different user of the basin are community and private sector. And so this Basin Governance Committee should engage different groups of users. And then, so they have, when participating in this committee and dialogue, then they will voice up their water need and get water awareness raised, and be informed of the national direction on the basin water governance. And so together find a solution to sustainably assess the shared water resources. So an example is that in the last April, in April this year, we have WWF have hosted a session in the Mekong River Council Summit, a session namely cooperation between the public and private sector for responsible financing and sustainable development. So we see that more and more we want to see the engagement of the private sector, brands, community, and manufacturers into the dialogue of this basin governance committee. So those are my insights. I hope that is helpful.
Yes, thank you so much. And so we're almost close to our time, so I want to be able to be able to take a couple questions, but wanted to thank all of our speakers for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing your insights and experiences with us. I do have a question from online, and it is, thanks for sharing your wonderful experience on collective action. Any selection criteria of the sites or basins in both India and Turkey? There are many textile and cotton producing sites, and what are the criteria to identify and implement the collective actions? And then a follow-up to that question, how the established Cotton Stewardship Committee approach to get funds for changing the flooding irrigation to modern one after developing 5 projects, how they approach the funding agencies and partners. And so I believe this is directed towards Aaron and Rogel, if either of you have some insight to that.
Do you want to go first, Raul?
Aaron, perhaps you could start?
Okay, so so this question is specific for finance?
They're wondering what the selection criteria is for the sites or the specific basins that are chosen then for the textile and cotton producing sites themselves, and then or how to identify the implementation or collective action points within that basin or the sites.
For example, for the case of Turkey, I can say that we're in many regions mentioned, the case is similar. Water has become a shared risk, decline of biodiversity, climate change. There are the challenges may differ. The complexity, the challenge as the complex issue to handle is the same in many regions. So basically here, the key driver can be where in areas where textile supply chain is important for the country, for multinational level, and we know that textile industry, being specific for textile industry, the industry, when we look at the textile clusters worldwide, it is under risk. As I mentioned, the risks vary, but the risk is high for this industry because it has a high water footprint. Strategies design can be specific for the local conditions, for the nature of the risks, but we know that also like public sector is under risk also, as they have to supply water for everybody, and they cannot do it alone. So I think this is a good start in every local area. And then here, as I've also highlighted, that NGOs have a key role to bridge the gaps between public sector and private sector, and then facilitate dialogue around. So to make it short, the global water risks are globally there for textile industry. There are local differentiations. However, I think the methodology is the same, priorities are same in every basin. If this is an answer to the question, if I got the question right.
Perfect, thank you, Erin. And Rogel, do you have a follow-up to the question?
Yes, yes, exactly.
Thank you.
For example, if it is a basin selection, that we do have a 2 to 3 very strong point on selecting the basin for this particular collective actions. So the one is, as I mentioned in the previous discussion, this is one of the top hottest biodiversity hotspots in the world, and that we need to conserve. That's we have a very concern about. And for the last 20, 25 years, WWF India have been working in this particular landscape on conserving wildlife, community rights, and everything. And in addition to that, connecting the river is also one of the major criteria. And this project is unique as because it's not just addressing the water-related stress, actually connecting the landscape-related issues and the water-related issues together into this particular program. And this particular basin actually falls in that particular criteria where we could able to connect those two issues. And the third one is this Noyal River is one of the highly polluted rivers in the last 3-4 decades in Tamil Nadu, as because of the textile industry's issues and also rapid urbanization which is happening in this one. So we won't say it's just because of the industrial pollutions which is happening, but also the urbanizations and improper maintenance of management of the groundwater and surface water also happening in the particular area. So these are the major criteria on selecting these particular issues. And also we found out in the previous assessments and risk assessment as well, different approaches is also that we could be able to address it. Say, for example, supply side and demand side. So both actually the conceptual in this one. The supply side is what the water actually which starts the rainwater and the base flows into it. And demand side is where actually the water is being utilized for agriculture, domestic, and industries. So this project actually, this particular basin actually focuses on all these 3 areas, and these particular locations are very unique on that particular aspects that we could able to cover demand side of agricultural usage, industrial usage, and then domestic usage. We are trying to reduce the dependencies of water from the basin. And the supply side, which respect to the invasives and spring shifts, so that which actually conserves that particular environment and also facilitates and provide the environment ecosystem for the wildlife and other native species to thrive together. So that is the major reasons into this one.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And we have time for one last question. I don't know if there's anyone from the audience that would like to question. Yes?
Thank you. Does it work? My name is Daphne Willems, and I'm very happy with this overview. Thank you for all the presentation from around the world. I was intrigued by the differences that, for example, in Turkey, it's very fast for a company to earn back their investments. 1.5 years was mentioned. Regulation is there from the government, and in other places it's harder. In Vietnam, it was 5 years to get back your investment, and there's less pressure from the government. So my question is, I think to IKEA or Ralph Lauren. Sometimes there might be a lack of return of investment motivation, governmental motivation. Is the brand and the consumer part, because I didn't hear about that, can that be enough to make a change in your work, to really commit to reducing water use because you think it helps you selling more products?
Thank you for that. Neha, do you want to?
Yeah, I'll try it out. Like I mentioned that, each basin is a different situation. Each geography is a different situation. And there's some pre-study which is done, to assess that is this the right basin to start working on. But once that is done, there's an extensive study being made to identify what all are the risks in that region and what are the key areas to address, out of the supposedly 10 risks identified. These are 2 or 3 the key most important ones to be worked upon as a priority, and this goes in phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. What are the pre-studies to be done, what are the pilots to be done, and how to accelerate it, right? So one of the key learnings that at least we have had is that we need to be very patient. It requires a lot of perseverance. And it is a long-term approach. Collective actions will not help us get results in a short-term perspective. So we are not there in this to have immediate results or an year-on-year results, right? So a lot of this depends on What are the pre-studies done, and engagement of the key stakeholders. That is very, very important. Ownership is very important. So that is one big learning, I would say. And the other aspect that you mentioned, including customers. So unfortunately, in these two basins, we don't have our customers. So this is more from a supply chain perspective. But we are also thinking that because we have identified, key markets where we are selling, which are in high risk, and how do we mobilize our customers within those regions. But what should be the approach there? We are still trying to develop it. Yeah. Thank you. Over to Lalf, if they want to add something. Yeah.
Yeah, Mitsuko, do you have something to add?
Yes, I can share a little bit about our approach. When it comes to encouraging suppliers to make investments around water efficiency, equipments, and technologies, it's really important for us to be able to present that in a holistic manner. So, oftentimes investments that are focused on water-related technologies either doesn't pay back very quickly or it doesn't pay back at all. That's the sad truth, because for a lot of our production geographies, water costs nothing. And what that means is, of course, water treatment costs a lot of money, but really, water efficiency, because water doesn't cost anything, in a sense, when we calculate return of investment in the purchases of these type of equipments and technology, that focuses more on water, water reduction. In a traditional sense, you would look at, as you would look at other energy efficient technologies, right? You look at the electricity prices, you look at fuel prices, but when you look at it, for water specifically, this is why a lot of the return of its investment is very low and the payback is very long. Now, what we've seen in a lot of our suppliers' facilities is that they strategize around a more holistic resource consumption roadmap. So in a sense, the energy efficiency improvements with a higher return of investments and shorter payback period would somehow finance partially or at the beginning, finance a bigger portion of the investment need for the water technologies, right? And also when you look at it from not only that, coupling water related investments with energy related investments to make it a more compelling business case would work. But in another angle, you also need to look at a longer term sort of risk management of the company as well. And for a lot of our suppliers, they are facing a lot of potential crisis, environmental crisis, climate crisis, water crisis, prices, inflation. So in terms of managing their resources better, there needs to be a more systemic and holistic take in the way that they're investing. They're looking at investments that are short-term, long-term, and medium-term. And when you combine that together, the business case is much clearer for them. And this is how we've been seeing a lot of these evolve over time. Previously, a lot of the assessments, the investment studies, were conducted sort of in silos, right? However, realizing that this is related to a long-term business strategy, long-term risk mitigation, enterprise risk management, which relates to all sorts of resources, not only fuel and energy, but also water and environment and pollution. That kind of really help us build that business case for them. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you so much. And we are out of time now. So I wanted to thank again all of our speakers for joining us today, as well as all of you. Appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.